Here's a tutorial on Romance by Mozart. It's from Adult Piano Adventures, Faber, Book 1. All right, so with this particular arrangement by Mozart, we're dealing with a couple of things here. So first thing is noticing the quarter rests that are on beat 2 and beat 4. And then sometimes just on beat 4. And then with our melody, we've seen a lot in this book where it goes between the hands. And then incorporating a flat in the piece. So in this case, we're dealing with B flat in the left hand. So in this case, I know the thumbs are kind of awkwardly sharing for this middle C position, but just remember that when we're dealing with a black key in the music, we usually tend to want to stay a little bit further in the keys. And then secondly, with the thumb situation, making sure that we're playing the middle C in the correct hand. So instead of doing, so depending on where the middle C is, it could be in the left or it could be in the right. So making sure that you're doing it in the correct clef, in the correct hand. So let's give a listen to what this sounds like, and then we'll dive deeper into the piece. And there you have it. There's a few little nuances that I'd like to talk about in this piece. So when we come across a two-note slur, so for example, in measure 7, so notice that the slur is specifically for the 2 notes and then another 2 notes. So we typically like to approach that as like a sigh or a more or less type of sound. So they're not totally created equally when you're playing them. But when you're first learning, don't worry too much about that, just getting the notes first. And then once you feel comfortable with the notes, try to see if you can do that down, up, down, up. And then we even have a diminuendo getting softer at the end of this measure 8. More or less. So thinking lighter pressure on the keys as you get to the end of the phrase. And we also have that again at the end of the piece after this long string of 8th notes. With that ritardando slowdown to factor in. Okay, so I feel like, you know, you could start at the beginning. You could start at the last line at measure 13. Doesn't necessarily have to be start to finish when you're working through a piece. So what I'm going to start with actually is have us go through the slur parts, so where there's like a longer slur to be specific. So this would be the first bars at the top of the page, so measure 2 to 3. And then actually that is repeated exactly the same at measure 10. So let's just focus on the first part of the piece. So in this case, the middle C will be in the left hand, right? Since it's in the bass part. So making sure those are really smooth and connected, or legato. And then taking note that they're writing there still B flat. So normally in our music, we would not have that reminder. So just remember that when you see the same note in the same measure, it will automatically be flat or sharp depending on what's there, because it's within the same bar or measure. And then when you go into the next bar, it'll go back to normal. So here it's indicating B flat still. And that'll apply to measure 11 and 12 since it's the same. Okay, and then our other longer slur would be at the end of the piece with that little tapering off at the end. At the end there. So 3 and 4 and 1, 2 with a slowing down. Awesome. All right, and then let's see, just for fun, let's see if we can try these little down ups that I was mentioning earlier. So like at measure 7, so with that left hand, more or less down up. So I kind of want to have you be a little more flexible with using that wrist to help you with the down up. Down up. So don't be afraid. I know it's a little scary coming off the keys when you're not too familiar with the piece. But yeah, nothing drastic, like you're not going to lift it super high or anything. Just keep it still close, but you're doing a little lift. Okay? And then similarly at measure 13, this one's a little tricky because the thumbs are played, both are played within the same measure. So you just want to make sure that you kind of give way for the other hand to do its thumb on middle C. Down, up, down, up. So as this comes off, so that's where the lift comes in handy, so that the left hand can swoop in. All right, cool. And then, of course, acknowledging your rests at the beginning. Rest, rest. 1, 2, 3. When we get to measure 5 and 6, I know there's a bunch of repeated notes in there, but when you don't have repeated notes next to each other, we still want to make those legato as well. So the second line from measure 5 to 8. That's how that would go.